What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about if Splatoon 3 will release in 2020. Now, this is a game franchise that really, in my opinion, came out of nowhere for Nintendo and has really become quite a thing. Now, Splatoon 2 released in the summer of 2017, 2 years ago, from when you're watching this video, from when I'm recording this video, and it was right at the time that we actually started doing previews on the channel. It's one of the first games I previewed after, I believe, the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. I think Splatoon 2 was the second game I previewed on this channel. And what I've come to notice from Splatoon, again, over the past couple years, especially really honestly, from Splatoon 2, going forward, these last 2 years, this game has really become something quite cool. It's a game that gets mentioned quite a lot. It's a game that pops up quite a lot. It's a game that has a lot of popularity. It's a game that has a lot of potential. It's a game that I think really has grown from really coming out of nothing to becoming one of the bigger franchises, or just a franchise for Nintendo, which is not putting it lightly, because when you think of Nintendo, you don't necessarily think of Splatoon, right? When you think of Nintendo, you think of The Legend of Zelda, you think of Mario, obviously a lot of Mario games in general, but you think about those, you think about Smash Bros, you think about those kind of games. Splatoon, again, I really had kind of like a far away journey to getting here. It had to really work to get to where it was, and with Splatoon 2, sold incredibly well. They added that multiplayer mode that people really, really like, and this is still a game that people play to this day. It's a game that's very, very popular. It's a game that still gets support out there. So for Splatoon 3, you've got to think this is a game in the making, and I use the same argument when talking about Splatoon 3, really the same as Mario Kart and the same as Legend of Zelda, and I was right with Legend of Zelda. And you can even look at the Super Mario games. I think Super Mario games are a game that you really have to look at for history. Nintendo has a very set structure, I think, and strategy of when they release these games, and they really stick on a very good timeline that they've stayed true to over the past couple years, and it's been 2 years since Splatoon 2. Now, I've talked about Mario Kart 9 in terms of when I think that game's coming out, and really considering Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and what that game was, you would think that game would take less time to actually, be made, but alas, that game does seem to be a 2020 game as well. You look at even the next Super Mario game. I know we got Super Mario Maker, but it's now been almost 2 years since Odyssey came out, and you've got to think that a second game, whether it's Odyssey 2, whether they go back to make a Galaxy, which is what I've petitioned for, you got to think that game is also coming out. And you look at Legend of Zelda, came out again in the spring, I think, February or March of 2017. It's been 2 years, a little over 2 years, and we have the confirmation. I called it before E3. I made a video talking about, are we getting a Breath of the Wild 2 at E3? And we did. And it just seems like it's around that time, right? They kind of announced it 2-ish years after the game comes out, and then 4 years, the game releases. I assume 2019 has been phenomenal, and I will say it again, phenomenal for the Nintendo Switch. They've had so many great games, so many exclusives. We're in a month right now where they've had games like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, exclusive just for them. Fire Emblem Three Houses, such a popular game in its own genre, exclusive. And we got Luigi's Mansion. Next year we already know about Animal Crossing. So there's a lot to look forward to. But I think 2020 can be even bigger for Nintendo than 2019 was, and that's saying a lot. Again, considering Ultimate Alliance, considering Fire Emblem, Super Mario Maker, and a whole lot more this year. Next year could be Animal Crossing, Mario Kart 9, could be Legend of Zelda, although I'm not sure if that game would be out within the next year. But I think a game like Splatoon 3 could be a stealth-like release in July of next year. I believe Splatoon 2 was also July of 2017, so maybe they found kind of a home, and obviously they feel very comfortable. While a lot of gaming developers, a lot of games in general, do not release in July, they kind of see that as just a time that you don't release games. July, even August for the most part doesn't have a lot of games. This year it has quite a few, especially towards the end, but it's got Madden in the beginning. But normally you stay away from it, but it seems like Nintendo has no problem doing that with games like Dragon Quest Builders, which came out on PS4 as well, but PS4 Nintendo, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, July 19th, and Fire Emblem July 26th. So you have these very, very big games coming out literally all throughout July. I don't think they care that July really is a time that you don't release games, and that's just kind of a notion that's been made by gaming developers. It's not a thing that I don't think. I think people want games in July and August. It's summer vacation really across the entire world, so I don't understand why the time that you would think June and July, when you should have a lot of games, normally is when game developers slow down and they don't release anything. But they've seemed to find quite a very nice spot there in July. So I feel like July of 2020 would be where I would put my money down for a Splatoon 3. It makes sense. It's been long enough. At that time, it would have been 3 years. And it's just a game that I think is just going to keep growing and growing. Splatoon 2 was a very, very solid game. I don't think it was an amazing game. I don't think it blew the socks off anybody, but it was a necessary jump from Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 2. Like I said, they added multiplayer. They added quite a couple things that people had wanted, and they made this game what it's now become. People talk about this game. People recognize this game for the Nintendo Switch. People know that this game is an actual popular game that you can talk about. It's not just some indie game. And again, it had kind of a faraway fight that it had to go through to get to this point, because you don't really, even a Metroid game. Metroid is such a popular franchise, and we know about Metroid. Everybody knows Metroid, right? But those games don't sell. Those games don't even sell. So even a game like that, very popular, and you think of Metroid when you think of Nintendo, but that game itself doesn't even do well. So for Splatoon 2 to have to work, or Splatoon in general, to have to work into a conversation with Smash, with Mario Kart, with Super Mario games, with Legend of Zelda, with all of these things, and then also, and it has to make a name for itself, and it also has to sell. It has to actually sell well. And by being so different, I think that's its biggest strength. It is so different and so far away from all those other games. That's its ultimate strength. And I think that makes it do very, very well. So I definitely place my money for next year. I do believe next July would be when this game would come out. Now, if it doesn't get announced for quite a while, if it starts to get closer to next July and this game still isn't even announced, then obviously that throws my theory out of whack, and then that game would be pushed back. Maybe it takes longer than 3 years to make this game, but again, just judging from the other games that they're releasing, it seems to be 3 to 4 years, but 3 years is where I feel like they would like it. I feel like really any game studio, game developer in that kind of mold, especially a game, it's not, I'm not calling Splatoon a small game, but it's not, the huge open world that Red Dead or a GTA or a Cyberpunk or a Witcher, it's not like that. Again, I'm not taking away from that. I know games like that can still take 3, 4, 5 years. There's no rush. I'm not putting a rush on them. But, I feel like those kind of games, you tend to settle in that 3 to 4 year life cycle. You don't really want a game like Splatoon, I feel like, taking more than, say, 4 years. So if we don't get this game in 2 years, then, there's a problem there. But I really do think next summer is a very high probability. And if not, then I would say the summer of 2021. So guys, let me know in the comments below. What do you think? What do you think about Splatoon in general? Did you buy Splatoon 2? Did you play that? And when do you think Splatoon 3 is releasing? Let me know. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, Podcast Now. Hit that bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up. And thank you, as always, for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video.